So again, welcome and thank you, Kennedy Twiggs. We're so honored that you're here to speak to our community members and residents of this. So I'm gonna ask you 5 questions, and it should take about. So before we get started, if you'd like to just introduce yourself to our community, that would be
Absolutely. My name is Ricky Twiggs Jr. I was an independent candidate, but currently I am a no party candidate after August 1st. I'm running for mayor of New Orleans. I am the youngest candidate in the race. I am 34 years old. Just had a birthday 4 days ago. I think it was 4 days ago, August 14th, whenever that was now. Time is of no concept to me because everything is happening all at once right now. Um, and not only am I the youngest candidate, I am also the only candidate that's a licensed professional counselor with direct mental health experience to our youth and our young adults throughout the city of New Orleans. I work primarily with teenagers that are suffering from addiction, struggling with trauma, anxiety based disorders, depressive disorders. That is where I find the most joy, is working with teens. And so I've been specializing in that since 2017.
great. So you'd be well equipped for some questions. So the first question that I have for you, what steps would you take to make New Orleans infrastructure and public spaces more accessible to all residents? How would you ensure that residents with disabilities are at the table when decisions are being made about the city's built environment?
I love that. And I think this is an absolutely relevant question for what is happening today in the city of New Orleans. Most of the city is not accessible to individuals with disabilities, physical disabilities at that. And we have to do a better job of meeting those individuals' needs and making sure that they also have a seat at the table in policy direction. And I believe that this has been going on for too long, where communities that are impacted by abled legislation are not necessarily taking into account those with other abilities, and we have to start taking that seriously. And one of the things that I'm very passionate about is that I have Crohn's disease, and I've been dealing with Crohn's disease since I was 9 years old. It's impacted my ability to go to school. It impacted my ability to function in life. And just recently, I just found a infusion that has been very helpful to me, to where I have entered a remission process. Prior to that, it was very difficult to do things. And it was also very difficult to function in society according to society's current norms and standards. And we have to make sure that we are highlighting those individuals that will have those struggles. And we haven't historically done that. So one of the ways that I want to approach this is making sure that we have equal representation at the table. And we do that by being culturally mindful and by being aware that there are individuals that are not able-bodied, right? And we have people that are that are treated as though they are not necessarily human because of how they function in society. And that is truly unfair. And we have to do a better job of that. And I haven't seen our city really amplify those individuals' voices in the way that it needs to be amplified. The other day, just out here on Berman Highway, I noticed that there was somebody in a wheelchair because there's no sidewalk and they're pushing themselves in the street. That's unacceptable. Why are there not enough sidewalks with access for individuals with ramp? Like, why is there no ramp for people? Why is there no sidewalk? Why is there no safety measures put into place? Because that road leads to a Walmart that people have to shop at. These are common sense measures that have gone unanswered for far too long.
Yes. So for our second question, how will you support economic opportunity for residents with disabilities And what steps would you take to ensure that jobs across the city, including city jobs and contracts, are truly inclusive and equitable?
Absolutely. And this is something that I also believe has been historically ignored. And we have to make sure that we're putting money in everyone's pocket, not just a few individuals. And that goes for nonprofits that are serving communities that are desperately marginalized. And I think if we look at nonprofits in general, we will find that most of the nonprofits are not following their mission. We have to make sure that the nonprofits are following their mission. So if a nonprofit in the city of New Orleans is operating to make sure that individuals who are other able or have a seat at the table or have access to jobs or things of that nature. We have to make sure that that nonprofit is doing that, that they are following their mission. And that is why I believe that we have to have a department that focuses solely on nonprofit missions and objectives and outcomes to make sure that that is happening for individuals. Secondly, what I would also say is that we can really expand how City Hall functions if we offer individuals who are other abled positions and jobs to, again, make sure that they have a seat at the table in not just policy legislation, but just in the simple act of being in City Hall. Just being in City Hall, you'll notice that there are a lot of barriers to individuals being to access it or to even be in the building. So we have to make sure that we provide those resources, and we can definitely do that. Bringing people to the table and making sure that City Hall functions to be as diverse as possible. So important.
Yes, it is. So that brings us to their question. What is your vision for ensuring that residents with disabilities can access safe, affordable, and accessible housing in every neighborhood of the city? And how would you address both affordability and physical accessibility in housing policy?
Absolutely. When it comes to housing policy, the city of New Orleans can really be the leader in this area. The population is not large. We have like 360,000 people. If we create and reinvest in how we approach housing in general, we explore renters' rights, we explore what that looks like for individuals across the board. And when we do that, we start to implement areas that are not just equitable, equal, but just. And just housing means that just because I am able doesn't mean that I am going to look past the simple things. Having a ramp that leads up to the front door, having these simple elements, making sure that a hallway is big enough for a wheelchair. Because as we all know, my parents are getting older and their home is a little older. And so the door frames aren't big enough for a wheelchair. I think if we are just a little bit more proactive in how we approach building homes and the requirements necessary to build them out appropriately, we can create an inclusive living environment for individuals. And I believe that is the absolute core element that has been missing is that we don't think ahead. We just think about what serves us, but we don't think about what could serve other people. And we also don't think about what will serve ourselves when we are that age if we stay in this home. We have to be aware of the diversity of our own lives, but also the diversity of other people's lives. And we just haven't done that appropriately. So I would say the first thing that we do is to make sure that all housing standards are equitable and just across the table. And again, you can only do that if you bring people to the table of different diverse backgrounds and different diverse abilities.
So, our third question, how would you work to expand mental health access in the city of New Orleans? And what role do you see the city playing in preventing incarceration of people with mental health conditions?
City has a duty to not only stimulate the mental health community, but to make sure that mental health is at the center of every single conversation. After Hurricane Katrina, Charity Hospital was held hostage for a very long time in order to build University Medical Center. And in doing that, there was no access to care for people that were struggling the ramifications of Hurricane Katrina for a very long time. And it's taken New Orleans so long to just get where we are, especially after surviving Governor Bobby Jindal and the absolute devastation that he caused in relation to mental health care and access. I would say that we are finally making some headway, but it's not anywhere fast enough, which is why, as the mental health candidate, I want to invest heavily in resources for individuals. One of the most important things to me is that we do not have long term care facilities for individuals suffering with significant mental illness. We do not have enough short term care. We do not have enough long term care. We do not have enough outpatient care. We don't have enough inpatient care. We have so many needs that have gone unfulfilled. And mental health is not just the center of my platform, but it really is the center of everything that is currently going wrong with the city of New Orleans. And if we bring that to the center of the conversation, we can have a dramatic change in, in unhoused policy, in public safety, in serving people with other abilities. We can do this if we put mental health back on the table. And in my opinion, how beautiful would it be to reinvest in a charity hospital as that beacon of mental health care? If we can transition charity hospital back into a hospital that serves people, focusing on mental health care, what a powerful thing we'll have for our community. And I believe that is something that we are owed. And it is one of the things that I will aggressively pursue if I'm elected mayor, is to make sure that we are able to reopen Charity Hospital to be that beacon of mental health standards and care, not just in New Orleans and the state, but throughout the entire nation.
Right. And lastly, how would you advocate for more equitable access to Medicaid and other healthcare supports for residents with disabilities in New Orleans? And what types of policies would you support or oppose?
Absolutely. I believe one of the things that we all know to be true is that New Orleans is the economic powerhouse of the state. We have a tremendous amount of negotiating power and leverage. And we have to be very mindful of that power, and we have to use it when necessary. Not only do our taxpayers and the money that flows in from conventions to the Super Bowl to all of these different events that we hold. Not only does the money go to individuals in New Orleans, but we also supply money to the other 63 parishes. We are the economic engine of this state. And it is, in my opinion, that if we can start to reinvest in communities that have lost access to public hospitals, such as Charity Hospital, throughout Louisiana, hospitals similar to Charity, if we can start to reinvest into those hospitals and stimulate that economy again through bringing doctors that want to come here to serve in in providing care directly to patients in a way that is in the true spirit of charity and giving. I think we can not only have a cultural reset by doing that, but we'll have a massive economic change as well. Because what is happening currently is that doctors, nurses, mental health practitioners are all leaving Louisiana for better pay. That's a huge problem. We're not even competitive in the ability to make sure that those who are taking care of our people are paid adequately. It is absolutely absurd what we have done to our medical community, and it is absolutely absurd what we have done to our mental health community. We got to bring those individuals here. We have to be competitive, and we have to provide the space for them to be competitive. And UMC, as beautiful as it is, just isn't it. It's not enough to retain people to stay here and to want to come here. Charity Hospital was an internationally renowned hospital. People from all over the world were coming here. Imagine if we could have that again in relationship to mental health. We can do this. And not only can we do that, but by doing that and setting the standard, we'll have the ability to raise the rates for Medicaid to make sure that our providers can survive off of that. And not only that, but if we start to do that, we'll have a better chance to hold Medicaid longer here in this state. And despite what is occurring at the federal level, we can absolutely do this. If we set the standard here in the city of New Orleans and then expand that standard to the state, we'll have an even bigger advantage nationally. We could really be the true experiment in leading that cause. And why can't we? Why haven't we? When it's right here in our grasp. Our population, again, is not very large. We can absolutely do this. The majority of our population is impoverished. They're struggling. Why haven't we opened a hospital that is geared for mental health care for those individuals that desperately need it? It is a travesty what has happened, but we can correct that course through will, being smart economically, and by pushing the standards that are just sitting there without any just cause.
Thank you so much. To wrap this up, is there anything that we haven't touched upon that you'd like to add?
I would say that mental health care is so vital to this community. It is so vital to this community. It teaches us cultural diversity. It teaches us how to approach individuals who are neurodivergent, who are other abled, who are everything else. We we have to bring mental health to the forefront in order to address these historic problems. And if we begin to do that, we will have a massive change in not only how the city functions, but in how people feel in relation to the government. And I believe more than ever, we need a healer and not another politician in that seat. We need someone that can guide us with a healing hand and not someone who is looking for number one and to take from our community. We've had enough of that.
Thank you so much for your
Thank
time.
you.
I'm gonna cut off the recording.